Good evening, Atlanta. Great to see you guys. Great to be here. I'd say great to be here, but I'm not really there. I'm kind of here in Israel, but it's great to be there with you, sort of. Just before we hop in all the intros, let me just ask you guys a quick favor, if that's okay. Everybody watching, are you there? Cool. All right, virtual events, amazing. So just a quick favor, if that's okay. If you could just take your right hand. I know it's been a long day, just a bit of exercise. Take your right hand, the right one. Yeah, you got it. And raise it as high as you can. Come on, there we go. No. All of you, yeah, I can't really see you, but I know some of you. All of you, please, just a bit higher. Every one of you, take your right hand as high as you can. Leave it there for a moment. I know it may look strange to those around you, but take that right hand and raise it up. And now, just before you put it down, take that right hand and raise it just a little bit higher. Then you can put it down. Thank you. Now that was interesting, right? Because what just happened? I asked you guys a quick favor, and I asked you if you could all raise your right hand as high as you can. But then, as soon as I asked you to do that and raise it a little bit higher, I couldn't really see you guys, but I think every one of you there in Atlanta raised your hands just a little bit higher. Just when you thought you were reaching your full potential, reaching as high as you can, you still raised it a little bit more. And that is the goal of the next 20 minutes. Or of this whole event this evening, this whole networking event put on by the wonderful Colel. That's the goal of what we're trying to do, reach a little bit higher. We'll discuss that, but it's amazing. Where are we right now? What's going on? It's wild times right now. And of course, I was supposed to be with you in Atlanta. Thanks from Yosef Shapiro and from Dave Silverman for the invitation to come. This was months ago. The itinerary plan to be in Atlanta with you guys and being open with you. A long time bucket list item of mine was to give a TED Talk. For the first time in my life, I was scheduled to give a TED Talk in Maryland this week. And it's not happening right now. Put on hold indefinitely. The world, it's just wild right now. So we're trying to make the best of the situation. We're trying to just roll with it, embrace it, and grow through it. But let's take a step back, because that's the theme of this evening. Reaching higher, embracing our circumstances, and growing. So let's actually zone into a personal story, if that's okay. We'll talk a little about me, and then we'll kind of tie it all together. Cool? All right. So let me tell you a bit about myself. Of course, the title of the talk is The Gift of Stuttering. And I'll tell you about what it was like to grow up in Toronto as a little boy who had a really debilitating stutter. So loved sports and played on, as a classic Canadian kid, I played a lot of ice hockey, and in the summers I played a lot of baseball. I did a lot of snowboarding, very sporty, and really loved being around friends and stuff. A fairly typical kid. But there's one part about me that stood out a lot, and that was my speech. As I mentioned, I couldn't really talk that much, and it was really hard. Again, as I mentioned, I like speaking. I like people. But it was really hard not to be able to talk. Think about being in first grade, second grade, third grade, or as we say in Canada, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. Think about being in school, knowing the answer to a question when the teacher asks and just not being able to talk, not being able to raise your hand. And even if you know the answer, you might not even say it. Or even worse, I vividly remember what it was like. Think about this, guys. I remember what it was like to answer the phone, to pick up the phone, try to answer the phone, and not be able to say the word hello. Gasping for breath on the other side. The person thinks that my phone is broken. Or actually not even being able to say my own name. It was 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It didn't go away. Most kids that have a stutter, the stutter goes away at the age of about 5 or 6. I was one of those special kids that just kind of stuck with me for much longer. Went to a lot of speech therapy. Nothing really was helping that much. But to bring you in further to speech therapy, or really to stuttering, fascinating point for you to know, is that ask anybody who you know who has a stutter. Ask them what the hardest thing is for them to say. Because unlike other speech impediments, think about a lisp, for instance. So anytime a person says the R or the S, whenever they enunciate those letters, they'll enunciate them incorrectly. With a stutter, it's not like that at all. We have our own worlds of what we think and how we speak. Some words are easier, some words are harder, some sounds are easier, some sounds are, some situations are easier or harder. Family members, friends, strangers, when the stutter comes up more or less. But guess what? Nearly the hardest thing to say for everybody, ask around, is our own name. Why do you think that is? Think about it. Think about it. Why do you think it would be hardest for us to say our own name? Feel free to give it some thought. Feel free to drop it into the chat here if there's a chat on this video, on this webinar here. Why is it hardest for us to say our own name? Here's some insight into what it's like in the world of somebody who stutters. So let's say I'm 8, 9 years old and a new kid comes to class and everybody's got to say hello. And I'm like, hi, my name is... And my eyes start to flutter and my tongue starts to, out of my mouth and even my cheeks are red. And of course, kids start laughing and it's really embarrassing and I just can't get it out. That experience, that dread sticks with us so deeply and we don't want that to happen again. And it's really hard. So what we start to do is we do what's called word switching. We start to actually change words. So with many things that come up, and this is, by the way, what I'm doing throughout this webinar. I do it all the time. As I got older, I just got a little better at it. But what we do is we word switch. So if you're asking me, how is the day today? And I think I'm going to stutter on the word beautiful. Beautiful. It's a hard consonant. Beautiful. I might just say, oh, it's a wonderful day. And by the way, that's what I'm doing. So I think ahead of a few words, and I change words constantly. But we can't do that with certain things. When you ask me my name, I can't just say, hi, my name is Joe. Hey, it's not Mo, it's Joe today. That doesn't work, it's Mo. But when I know that I have to say my name, and I remember all those times I said my name, and I stuttered on my name, it's gonna be really hard to say it the next time. So growing up, there were just these things, and I was originally Moshe, I changed it to Mo, thought it'd be easier. It was really hard to have this stutter. And perhaps what was even harder for me is growing up as a kid in Toronto, growing up, going to observant Jewish day schools, is that we were taught some nice Jewish ideas, as I'm sure you guys are being taught throughout due to your incredible involvement with the Elena Kollel and the great rabbis that are there and the Rebbitzins, is that there's a God, right? There's a God, and he's awesome, and he loves us, and he cares about us, and he wants to do what's best for us. But I didn't understand that at all. What do you mean? Best for us? Wants to make us happy? My life was a living hell as a kid. I couldn't speak. Naturally loved being around people and talking, but I couldn't do that. What do you mean he loves me? Oh, Mo, there's something called prayer. Oh, prayer! Let's give this a shot. Pray, 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 pray. Please take this thing away. Is there anybody there? Anybody there? Do you care about me? And I remember being 13, 14, getting a little bit bigger and feeling like, all right, this whole God thing, not sure if it's really there. Ironically, when I started to potentially shift out and not believe so much, one of the ways in which I was always enthralled by being in movies, television shows, videos, as a kid. Now, being an Instagrammer or YouTuber is perhaps the most popular profession for teens today, or now a TikToker. But then it was at least being in movies. And at the age of 14, I finally convinced my mom to sign me up as an extra in a background agency. No speaking roles. I was way too nervous to speak. I couldn't do that, but at least to be on set. So at the age of 14, under 16, you have to have parental consent. And in Toronto, at least Canada was called Hollywood North because so much was filmed in Toronto that the tax credits, the dollar, thriving industry in Toronto. So at the age of 14, I get my first call. First call to be in a movie, and I'm really, really excited about this. I was going to skip school. I was going to be in a movie and get paid for it. It's like unbelievable dream come true. And I go down. My mom's bringing me downtown, and she has one request. She says, Mo, one favor from you, please. As you're going to be in that movie, I just ask you a favor. Try to keep the kippah on your head. Just keep the kippah on your head. Try. Ask the director if you could do it. And I remember telling my mom, like, yeah, I'll give that a shot. I'll see what I could do. And I'm thinking in my mind, like, take the kippah off. I'm pretty done with this. And I show up on set, and it was just so ironic. I felt this little like wink from heaven that I go to set on the first movie that I'm in, and the director's showing us what roles we're going to have, and I was to play the part. Yeah, I was to play the part of a Hasidic Jew. Not just any Jew, but a Hasidic Jew. Think about me trying to like shift out of this, and God's being like, you're going nowhere, Mo. And I was playing the part of a Hasidic Jew. So, ironically on set, I take the kippah out of my pocket and I put it on my head. I remember the hair and makeup artist comes to me and says, "Excuse me, sir, but the Jewish people, they don't wear it here, they wear it there." She's like moving it around and putting 6 more clips inside. "Oh yeah, that's the way that they wear their skull caps." I said, "Okay, thanks so much for letting me know." But it was, fascinating experience, actually, just that whole period of time, being 14, 15, 16, being in a bunch of movies at that age, meeting people like Lindsay Lohan or Russell Crowe and Renee Zellweger and all kinds of high-profile videos and movies, being in an unknown Canadian TV show then called Degrassi High of Drake fame. So Drake was in the show. We were in the show many, many, many times together, going back about 18 years or so. Nice Jewish kid, grew up in Toronto, never started from the bottom, just by the way. Anyways, whole experience, not for right now. But what I began to see more and more is that I have this like fork, like where am I going? Because I'm shifting totally out of Judaism, and I was trying to find myself. I still have this very strong speech impediment. I decided to come to Israel for a summer. I spent some time here for a few months. And while I was here, I began to really delve into studying Judaism in a way that I never had before, and asking the hard questions that I had. Like, why would God challenge us if he loves us? What's this thing called prayer? A lot of the questions that were really, really weighing on me. And what I began to see, again, much more lengthy for right now, but just to give this overview, to paint this very, very brief picture here, what I began to understand in a very deep way is that God really does love us, every single one of us, and created us to accomplish something unique. And that uniqueness that we have is there to help us, you and me, every one of us, fulfill the unique potential that we have in this world. This morning, I went to my yoga class. I just about 6 weeks ago or so started yoga. There's a few people in the class, and there's the yoga instructor. And I'm not, I blade and I do sports. So I'm sort of in shape, but I need to be doing more. So I began to do yoga here. This morning was the hardest class. The hardest class. I've never been pushed so hard. It was the most intense thing. And think about it. Whether you play on a sports team and you have a coach, or you've done that in the past, or a personal trainer, think about the pushing that they do on us, the personal trainers, the coaches, pushing us to those limits. But I began to see, just like this morning when my personal trainer, when the yoga instructor pushed me harder than I've ever been pushed in these stretches, is that that's helping me grow to the max. And what I began to see in my personal life was my stutter and other challenges that I was going through as a teenager and still go through today are perfectly designed to help me become who I am able to be. That challenge, think about my stutter. And I began to spend a lot of time, months and months, thinking about this. How I've grown through the fact that I could barely speak. The sensitivity that I developed. The patience, the appreciation for who I am, for the health that I have. It was unbelievable to see that. It's hard to imagine, but if every one of you on this call can think about the challenges that we have and start thinking about the ways in which it's helping us become a better person, right? Just to be open about one other challenge on this call, just to frame out of stuttering for a second. I mean, when I was about 15, right about that age, my parents got divorced too. And it was really, really hard. For years before that, it was really hard. And whoever you that have gone through that, it's really hard, no matter what. And I remember thinking, like, what in the world why, what, how? And many years later, I can reflect back. I was determined at that age, as a teenager, that I want to be an awesome husband, an awesome dad one day. I really want to be there for my family. I really want to be that guy, that dad, that husband. And that's partly also why I didn't really want to spend more time on movie sets. I didn't feel that was like the track for me. But in general, I began to see how certain struggles can help us frame what it is that we're going to do and the character traits we want to develop and the kind of life we want to lead. Not that this is why it happens. God has infinite wisdom for why everything happens. But to think about those struggles that we go through and how that can help us grow to become a better person, to lead a more meaningful life. And regarding a stutter, I began to see that too. The way in which I've grown as a person, in my patience and in my appreciation, in my sensitivity for other people, that has helped me in my personal and professional life tremendously. And I began to see that God was there for me, not just pushing me in his angry way, but rather pushing me in the most loving way. I'm a dad now of 4 young kids, and I know what it's like to try to encourage my kids to ride bikes, to play sports, to push themselves in math or in their Torah study, to push themselves to those limits, to learn, to grow, to become a better person, more talent. To be able to push that out is so important. What I want to be clear about, though, during this short class, is that when I'm talking about that stutter for me, or my parents' divorce, every one of us now are going through tremendous challenges, whether it's corona-related or otherwise, be it financial, be it personal, be it emotional. We're all going through stuff. Every one of us are going through stuff. And it's so easy, or it's natural, I should say, to get lost, to feel alone, to not feel that loving embrace from heaven, to not feel like God is really there with us and taking care of us. But the message that we're taking here is to think about how it is that the circumstances in our lives and in the world are there designed to help us become who we are. You know, I think about my speech. 17, 18, 19, I began to speak more. Once I began to recognize that things are for the best and that my speech is a part of me. The biggest paradigm shift was to then recognize that this speech is not something random. The stutter is a part of who I am. So 10 years of speech therapy, tons of money and time and emotion and tears just to get rid of it was not helping. To embrace it, I shouldn't say it wasn't helping. It has its own place and it's a good thing. Feel free to follow up with me if that's a discussion, happy to have it. But the ability to embrace that challenge and say, this is a part of who I am. My life's not going to start after I get cured. There's no cure for stuttering. It's not going to start afterwards. How can I take this and become a better person? How can I be more confident with my speech? How can I then go out and lead the kind of life I want to lead and not wait until one day, maybe, then if, how? Now, today, how can I start to speak more, introduce myself to new people? University, I was dreading going to university for my public speaking course that I had to take. Dreading it, scared, and the first class was miserable. The first time I had to introduce myself, it took about 30 minutes instead of a couple minutes for that speech. It was so hard and embarrassing. But the more and more I pushed this, the more I found that not only was I becoming more fluent speaking in front of an audience, but the fact that I stuttered made me try to find creative ways using my hand and be more dramatic and speak out of the box and all that kind of stuff to be able to speak, which parenthetically started to actually help me speak in a more dynamic way. I'm from a family. We have 8 kids in my family. Nobody likes to public speak as much as I do. And the more people in the audience, hundreds of people, thousands of people, is the more I love it, which is the craziest thing in the world. I still have a stutter. It's hard to realize it because when I public speak, I don't usually stutter. But in a one-on-one, it happens. And it's amazing that I thrive on this, which is mind-blowing. But it's actually a result of the stutter. In business, I found that I was actually the one in business for many years, whether the startups that I was with or the nonprofits, the one who's interfacing with the strategic partnerships and flying down to San Francisco and going to meet with Facebook or with Pinterest. And this is like what I was doing for my companies with my stutter that sometimes came up in these pitches and conversations with big venture capitalists. It's unbelievable. But being open and being vulnerable and embracing it and leaning in and being it who it is that we are and having that challenge of growing through it, it is, I can honestly tell you, honestly now, I'm 33, I can honestly tell you at this stage in my life that I would not be who I am today if not for the challenges that I've had. And I appreciate having them because of the person that they helped me become in my personal and in my professional life. You know, I got to say, it's a professional networking event. So just to bring this up, is that one of the most amazing entrepreneurial stories that I think about a lot, is somebody by the name of Jan Kuhn, who was born in communist Ukraine in 1976. Born in a household with no running water, parents afraid of speaking over the phone in fear of it being tapped. The way he led his life, he moved with his mom to the States. When he was a teenager, his mom worked as a babysitter. He was a cleaner in a grocery store to make ends meet. They were trying to save enough money to bring their dad over. Their dad sadly passed away. His mom was diagnosed with cancer. She passed away. He was kind of taking care of himself. And he was borrowing computer science books from like the local library or the bookstores. He was buying them, and then he was like returning them a few days later because he couldn't really afford them. Anyways, he went through college. He got his first job at Yahoo in about the year 2000. Spent about 9 years at Yahoo as a software engineer. After that, he wanted to apply to Facebook, and he was actually rejected for a job at Facebook. Twitter, rejected for a job there too. So he decided, along with a fellow developer from Yahoo, Brian Acton, they decided, let's build a company. And he thought long and hard about his pain point, about what he was going through in his life as a child, as a teenager, the whole former Soviet Union. And they decided, let's build a messaging app service where you can speak to anybody for free, all over the world. No cost. Over the internet, that's it. And encrypted messages. Nobody can spy on your conversations. Again, everything he did not have growing up. So in the year 2000, I think it was February 2009, WhatsApp was born. And of course, you guys know the story, right? I mean, it started in a small little warehouse. There was a lot of glitches. They almost shut it down, but they ended up persevering. They ended up pushing through. And then, of course, 2 or 3 years later, started to really, really take off, first in Eastern Europe and then moved over to the States. About 5 years after it was founded, as I'm sure you all know, right? Yeah, you all probably heard about the event through WhatsApp, is that Facebook bought WhatsApp, which is amazing. Think about it. Being rejected for a job at Facebook in 2009, and then Mark calling you 5 years later in 2014 saying, we'd like to buy your company. This is one of the biggest acquisitions in Silicon Valley. They were bought for $19 billion. $19 billion. And Jan went to sign the terms of the deal on the doorpost of the place where he went to collect his welfare, his food stamps. Unbelievable story of Jan Koum. And I think about Jan Koum's professional success being predicated on his personal challenges. It's a professional networking event. I want you to all think about that also. The personal challenges that every one of you have in your lives is not an obstacle for success, but it should be viewed as a vehicle for your success. What can we do to create this paradigm shift over all that we're going through in our lives to then view it as something positive that can help us grow? I can honestly tell you today, I'm a better dad because of my stutter and my sensitivity and my patience and my parents' divorce and all the mind and all the time I think about how I can try to be the best dad, husband, and dad, like even in my personal life. It's amazing to see the challenges that I've gone through helping shape the person that I am today. And I really want to leave every one of you here today with a beautiful message. I was planning to be with you face to face, have a longer talk, have a couple talks. I was planning to give a TED talk this week. Our worlds are turned upside down. There's more depression and there's more anxiety than perhaps we've ever seen in our entire lives. Let us please try to lean into it. Embrace it. Let's not hide from it. What can we take from the current dynamic in our professional lives, in our personal lives? There will be companies that are built, started during these few months that will become incredibly successful companies in the future because of what the world is going through today. There will be people, and I know people personally, really close friends of mine who are like big social media influencers that have a ton of followers that do a lot, that have already been like growing tremendously in their personal lives and like reframing stuff. I mean, so many people that I know in so many different ways are either being totally overwhelmed by this or growing through this or a combination of the two. And I want to give us all a blessing. I'm trying to keep this tight because there's a lot of networking here happening afterwards. I just want to give us all a blessing here today. Let us all reach higher. As we started, that right hand, we could be reaching higher. Let us please appreciate that everything that God has sent us, the obvious gifts, and that which is just packaged in a different way, the challenges, the adversity, are there not as obstacles for our growth, but rather vehicles for our growth. They're there to help us succeed in life, to lead a more meaningful life, a happy life. My prayers changed tremendously also. Remember I told you guys it was so hard to pray? Now I see that when I ask God even to help me with my speech or other things, that's God, it's really hard. Give me strength. If you're not going to take it away, then give me strength. The connection that we have to the creator of the world who's giving us the resources to lead our lives, helping us take a step back now, not hopping around on planes and traveling all over, taking a step back, focusing on other kinds of things a bit more than we usually do. Let us embrace this period of time, grow in our personal and professional lives more than we ever have before, in more unique and lasting ways. And let us all have what's called a Shana Tova Umetuka, a Shana Tova Umasuka, a sweet year. Sweet year. What does that mean, a sweet year? When do we ever wish anybody a sweet anything? Shabbat Shalom Umetuka, Shabbat. When do we ever wish anybody a sweet anything in Judaism? But a Shana Tova Umetuka. Why? What is it about the sweetness that we're giving somebody else in that blessing? Because sometimes God gives us years, or always God gives us years in which it's going to have its challenges. Some years more than others, like what we're going through right now. A lot of challenges right now. But may it be sweet. May we recognize the sweetness in it. God is giving to us as a loving parent who loves us more than we can possibly imagine. And these challenges are their design, like he's our personal trainer. They're helping shape our growth, our path forward to new horizons, being able to accomplish new things. May we appreciate the sweetness of our year and grow through that, embrace it, reach higher, and be able to accomplish more and unique things than we ever have before, in the unique ways that every single one of us can. Wish you all a Shana Tova Umetuka, a sweet, happy, healthy, and truly successful life in the year ahead in all the most meaningful ways. Thank you so much for having me, and hopefully we'll get a chance to connect soon together in person.